Rob, welcome aboard to the show. Thank you for joining today.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Rob, I'm going to jump right in here. You help students learn how to be entrepreneurs. Why?
Yeah, because that's where the career paths for, according to Forbes, 60+% of students are going right now. And when I talk about students, I'm talking about high school and college age students. So it's just trending. It's glamorous in their eyes. It's the gig economy. A lot of them are seeing what's happening in the world right now with lack of, I guess, consistency with employers, with layoffs, with, the whole COVID world that allowed these students to become remote. And they got into this lifestyle now. So everything's been recalibrated. And so it's a different world right now, especially with students taking a workforce development path. Entrepreneurship is a valid path for these students to take now.
And what's the skills? Like what is the focus on throughout your program? Give us a little bit of context.
Yeah, so it's a sports innovation startup studio, really. So it's those that are impacting the way we watch, play, and consume sports at home and at the game. So it's everything from technology to new sports to player development to just a weekend warrior playing pickleball. It's a little bit of everything. And the one thing about it is everybody at some point loves sports, participates in sports, even if it's running, jogging, watching, gambling. There's a little bit of everything. It's part of the DNA. I don't care where you are in the world. It's food, it's sports, it's music, it's religion, right? It's things that bring us all together. It's community. And, when you have kids that are really innovative and entrepreneurial, they're thinking of new ways to do things. So whether it's a new T-shirt brand or whether it's flipping, Jordan sneakers or whether it's giving one-on-one lessons with local kids in the community, if you're a college student athlete, there's opportunities abound. And with your phone, most of the software is either free or very, very, inexpensive. And the entrance point into being an entrepreneur right now, especially as a student, there's no risk. If it doesn't work out, then you go back to gym class, right? If it doesn't work out, you still got mom cooking you dinner and doing your laundry. So if there's ever a time for anybody to start a business, it's while you're a student, and the blocking and tackling, the fundamentals of just learning how to operate a business, sales, marketing, customer service, right? Cash flow, taxes. That's going to, whether you end up being an entrepreneur the rest of your life, or it's a great building block and learning discovery process that you're going to go through. And I say it all the time, entrepreneurship is the new internship, right? Start a business. You're going to learn more than going making copies and doing analytics or getting your boss coffee, whatever it may be. I don't know. So, start a business. It's easy. And we help kids along that pathway.
This is such an important point, which I think is not commonly known. One, and keep me honest here because I'm going to put a little bit of words in your mouth. I would argue that even if you start a business and fail, you have learned 10 times more than you would have in any other location through becoming an entrepreneur. So it's accelerated learnings. And those learnings that you got through that process, you're going to tell those stories in your next job interview. So even if you fail and you go work for the quote unquote man for a big company, those learnings, that experience that you've gained is going to be incredibly, incredibly valuable. That's the one thing that I would say, which I think is incredibly important in what you're saying. I want to talk a little bit about the breakdown of what this includes, right? What is it in marketing, sales, customer success, maybe? What are the elements of what the students are learning?
I think the first part about it is just figuring out the problem or the challenge that they're trying to solve, right? So that's the biggest thing, that I really focus in on. Like and then figure out who their demographic is and who they're selling to. I'll give you an example. So I had a student who was a senior in high school at the time, and he was doing fractional sneaker investment. So, a new pair of Jordans, $10,000. He can't afford it, or maybe one of his 18-year-old buddies can't afford it either. So they get 10 kids to throw in $1,000, so you get 100 kids to throw in $10. So you figure it out. It's fractional ownership. he figured out a solution, right? He figured out that the problem was all these kids now, they were trending towards being a sneakerhead, that they wanted to own a little piece of this, a very obscure Air Jordan sneaker. So he figured out a platform and built the software to be able to offer it up as a fractional ownership of the sneaker. So it's not nothing that's anything new, but he had a lane that was kind of narrow but really long. So for me, it's really focusing on the problem, and understanding how to build out the solution, and then talking to as many people as you can about it, right? To get the validation in the market and pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot. So that's the fundamental part of it. If you're doing like hey, I want to do my own, my own T-shirt company or my own new fashion brand, there's a little more that goes into that part of it, right? And you could only go so far with your local market, but you got to start somewhere. And friends and family, selling to them is the best place to start. And then being able to tell your story and the reason why, and is it a nonprofit? Is it a for-profit business? So there's so many angles, especially when kids, they want to change the world. They want to make an impact. And a lot of them just don't know how to kind of take that first step to get there. So that's what we help them with.
There's so many, I think, delightful things about what you said in the core skills that the students are learning. One is you're pushing them to go out there and actually ask questions and to talk to people. I mean, just in that, discovering actual problems, real pains that people have, they're working on their communication skills, right? They're understanding that it's actually not about them, it's about the client. Such a fundamental skill that I think a lot of salespeople nowadays don't always remember. The good old how to make friends and influence people philosophy, which I think, even though it's 60 years old, it's as valuable as it ever was. There's so much beauty in this. How did the students react? What are the stories? I'm sure that not all of them become entrepreneurs, probably not at a fraction, but I'm also pretty sure that all of them love the process and have great stories to come and tell you, kind of from the end of it. What have you heard?
There's so much of it because it's so glamorized right now. I call it the Gary V effect, right? So it could be flipping trading cards, but that's okay because they're being inspired. They're being inspired and said, listen, it's on you, right? And figure this thing out. There's so many people out there that look like them, that their age, the kids that they know that are out there doing it right now. And a lot of them, the parents have already, it's a big influence on the parents too, who are entrepreneurs, so a lot of blue collar people out there. And so I think just knowing that they have a pathway to get there, most of them, whether they're teachers or whether they're professors, none of them have ever, 99% of them never, most of them haven't left school since they've been in kindergarten, but the majority of them have never started a business, so you're better off going to a fireman. Firemen always have part-time jobs. Go and asking them how to start a business than a professor or a teacher. Honestly, it's just a reality of it, so they're teaching through theory. I always say this: you cannot teach entrepreneurship, but you can teach somebody how to start a business. Entrepreneurship is, as you know, is a badge that you earn. Like, you have to earn that right to become an entrepreneur, and it's not something you can't just say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur tomorrow and start a business. Well, here's what I find, Ari. I think kids take three different paths. Either a kid has an idea by themselves and they've already started it. So it's really that solopreneurship, or they're going to do like photography or give lessons or social media management. Or there's ones that say, hey, I have 3 or 4 of my teammates and we have an idea that we want to start up, or we've already started it. The best one I've ever heard, it was the coolest thing, was a group, and I don't even remember exactly when or where these kids were located, but they started bringing up garbage cans from right after the garbage was collected. So their busy neighborhood and their busy families, they pay $5 a week for the kids to bring their garbage cans, put it back in front of their garage or in their garage. And they just started recruiting other kids and doing other neighborhoods, and it just took off for them. Right? Oh, wow. That's what's beautiful about it, right? That because they know all they do is now they have a website and people go online and schedule them, and they pay online or they Venmo them. Now they have to learn about the bookkeeping and they have to, the cash flow and the records and the taxes. But the fact of the matter is there's no more paper routes. right? There's no way. There's other ways that kids are going to be entrepreneurial. And the last one out of this group, the last part of it, and the last pathway is making an impact. And it's typically female student athletes that want to do this, but they want to set up nonprofit organizations and give back and make an impact somehow. So those are really the three career paths that I see with student athletes that are into entrepreneurship, and they all want to do something that has a purpose. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of energy around it. So
I love that. Tell me something, Rob. You focus, keep me honest here, on athletes. Why?
yeah, because I think athletes have the inherent skill set that entrepreneurs have. Right? They're gritty, right? They figure out ways to win. They're used to a scoreboard. They're used to be coaching. They're used to the grind. They're used to making a commitment. There's so many skills that are just connected between the two. No, there doesn't mean that other students don't have the skill sets or the ideas. There's no doubt about it. Those kids will rise to the top too. The area that I focus in on is student athletes only because they have this internal drive. They have this internal grit. They don't give up. All right. Not all of them are like that, but the good majority of them are, especially when they get to college. Right. So when you get to college, now you're 5% of the kids from high school athletics make it to a college athlete. So only 5% of those kids, they get more. So by the time you get to college, student athletes are those regardless of where you play, at whatever level you play at, whatever school you play at, chances are you're pretty gritty, right? And
Yeah.
it's the same trait you need for entrepreneurship.
I think that one of the things that, if I had to pick just one thing on what defines a good entrepreneur, I would say it's definitely the ability to be coachable.
Oh yeah,
If you can't take feedback and you can't learn from your mistakes, and if you're not, I should say, conscious, self-aware, I would say no way you're going to be successful. And I can definitely see the overlap there with what athletes need to do in order to become good. So, what do you think the future should look like?
model from higher ed and public schools are so outdated, and everybody's bringing it up, right? And
Mm,
how we're lacking and falling behind in so many areas. There's no innovation without incentive. And the one thing about
mm,
higher ed, um, professors, their salaries, everything is the tenure is all tied whether they go out and get research grants, right?
mm.
Research grants without a tech transfer and without an incentive for the school to get a little bit of that IP out of that research, that's missing on most schools. So without any incentive for a professor or faculty or a student to get some of that IP and be able to commercialize that idea and really take it to to the marketplace, there's never going to be innovation. Higher ed loves to put the word innovation and entrepreneurship on buildings and on programming, but it's not. It's a facade. There's no bridge between I have an idea, it's a capstone project, or we've done this great research and now we want to commercialize that idea and capture the IP. The partnership is between the faculty, the student, the professor, right, and the founder and the investor, right? And that's what's going to make some of these schools out there that are pumping out great ideas and great research. They're all the Ivy League schools, they're all the big brand schools who figured it out. Tech transfer is the one thing that connects it all together. But so I think the future is overlaid, to answer your question, is an overlay of entrepreneurship pathways onto any major, or just you're going to go there and you have an idea out of high school, and mom and dad don't mind paying that type of money for you to kind of take your idea, figure out, get the support and help you need while you're at college, and then bring that idea to market. If not, you're going to leave there with a degree, right? So that investment
Right.
back into that student's experience, the network, the collaboration, and hopefully launch that business. And if not, that's okay, because they'll still leave there, like you said, with these so many intangibles, of failing and picking yourself up and doing it over again and finding another idea, because you're going to change probably 3 or 4 times by the time you get there. So entrepreneurship, business development, all of those things are going to be woven into the fabric of higher education moving forward, guaranteed in the next 2-3 years.
I love that. I think there's something really important that you're talking about, and that's timing. And I think we should dive into this timing aspect. When you're out of high school, maybe you're after college or before college, hopefully your healthcare is being still covered by your parents, right? In many situations. So you don't have to worry about healthcare costs. You can still, crash in your bedroom. So you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage. So that first part of your age, actually, when you're 18 to whatever, 26, under 30, it's a great time to do this experiment. Conversely, here's the worst possible time to become an entrepreneur. When you've got, a young baby, 3 kids, a mortgage, you've got a million things. If you don't make salary, then you basically lose your house. That's a terrible time. Here's the third time that's a good time, and I think this one is overlooked a little bit. I'm reaching that period. It's once you've retired. You've retired, you've paid off your mortgage, your kids are doing their own thing, and you kind of have that safety net again. So it's really about what you have to lose. So if we think about, I've heard parents say that, oh, I want my kid to focus on a job and I want them. Well, I would say no, that's the wrong approach, because you want your kids to do something, quote unquote dangerous, when there really is no risk, when the danger isn't there. So I think that's a really important point that you made, that's kind of worth doubling down into. What have you seen kids kind of go on and do with the skills that they've learned with you?
It's just a discovery time for them, right? So I tell them all the time, you're going to figure out what you don't want to do long before you discover a career that you love, right? So, just you got nothing to lose with this. So kids have gone on and pivoted. There's been a bunch of them that have actually taken the business and taken it to the point of where they did an exit. So it just depends. They bundle this into something else, they sold it, or they closed the business, but they've learned so much, and now they're on to their second business, or they're going to work for
Yeah.
somebody else who started a business. So I've seen a little bit of everything, Ari.
Yeah.
I've
It,
seen a little bit of everything from these kids.
I think one of the most beautiful things, and I kind of reframed their activity as, look, you're going to go and talk through the program with a lot of potential people. All of these people are professionals, right? They all have a job. Many of them are doing different things, sales, marketing, different industries. This is an opportunity for you to discover what they do, if they like it, what their day to day looks like. And then when you need to choose a job, right, in a year or two, you've got all this information. So you're so much educated about what kind of the professional environment looks like. I think that's also a highly undervalued point around these programs, that the knowledge that the students gain is also, really an amazing thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the education that they're going to get from starting a business. Anybody will hire these kids. On top of it all, student athletes are the most desired um, employees that companies are looking for as well, based upon what we already talked about, the skill sets and the traits that they already have inherent. So it's a great demographic of kids to work with, that are coming through. So
What I thought was interesting, that one of your students basically said that the easiest way to get somebody to respond to you, if it's LinkedIn or email, is to
yeah.
say, hey, I'm a student athlete working on this project, would you give me 15 minutes of your time? That's really hard, right, once you become a professional. But to have that gift, I think it's a huge opportunity, so I appreciated that.
Yeah, Kara, she's incredible what she's been able to do, but she's 100% right. There's no other time in your life that people are going to be rooting for you and trying to help you
That's right.
than right now when you're a student.
That's
Once
right.
you graduate, you're on your own, kid. But when you get it right now, everybody's going to respond to you and trying to help. 99% of
Yeah.
people will. Yeah.
Yeah. Rob, what's your advice for kids going through your or any kind of other entrepreneurial program to get the maximum value out of it?
Show up. Show up when we have our group sessions each week. To have a Q&A. Get to the point where you're not afraid to ask for help. You know, if you're going to commit to it, commit to the entire program. Jump on the monthly roundtable calls when we have executives and entrepreneurs and folks on there to answer questions, network with them, follow up with them, connect with them on LinkedIn. and then tell your story over and over again, because it's going to pivot, it's going to change, you're going to get
Wait, hold on,
feedback.
hold on. You said something important, right? These mentors, right,
Yeah,
that come in basically to the program.
yeah,
I think what a lot of the students miss is that these aren't just people that are here to teach you something. They're not teachers. These are potential people that might hire you.
right.
And in fact, as the teacher of one of these programs like you're doing, Rob, I've seen this happen multiple times. I've seen mentors kind of build this wonderful relationship with one of the team members, builds trust. You see how smart they are, and like, oh, do you want to come work for me? So
100%.
not only this is, and if it's not that, then they might introduce you to somebody. They might remember you, 6 months later. There's so much opportunity in the networking that happens that is so valuable. And if you're not going to commit, you're not going to put in the work, you're going to create a bad impression. Basically, your reputation is not as good as it can be. You're not going to get any of that value. But if you, as you said, show up, you do the work, shit, things, windows open up that you would never imagine. And I've seen that happen time and time again. It's always incredibly inspiring. Um, Rob, what an absolute delight. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. I have one last question.
Sure.
Now, this is the only scripted question we have on the show, and it's a difficult one. If you had to go back to 20-year-old Rob, what advice would you give him?
Pick your head up, enjoy the moment, be where your feet are. Those are all cliche things to say, but it's so true. Network, network, network. All those people around you right now, if you're in your 18, 19, 20-year-old, everybody around you is willing to help you out and can help you out. I wish that I enjoyed the moments more than I did. And I think because I had such a craving to keep going and into that next thing, that next thing, that next thing. And I don't think I enjoyed the thing that was in front of me enough when I was going through it. So yeah, that's what I would say is network by wherever you are. Those people around you, your professors, your teammates, your classmates, your roommates. Find out what their parents do for a living. And I waited too long when I found out what my roommate did for a living, because I never asked him until years later. I found out his mom was a big shot with Reebok. And it was like, oh, I wonder why you got all that free gear all the time. Never asked, never crossed my mind to ask. So those are the things that I think I would give my 20-year-old self. And don't drink as much as you did. Yeah.
Rob, thank you so much. What a delight. I appreciate you coming on today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.